welcome to today's Teoxane webinar. We are very happy to have today Dr. Benji Dhillon, Dr. Jorge Mercado, and Dr. Francesco Bernardini, respectively from the UK, Spain, and Italy, talking about how to reopen your medical practice after the COVID-19 lockdown. So before I hand over to our amazing doctors for the panel discussion, just please ask your questions in the Q&A tab as the webinar is going, and we will have a Q&A session with our key opinion leaders at the end of the webinar. So thank you everyone for attending, and Benji, I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Fabienne. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you very much for logging on. We hopefully will have a really interesting webinar for the next hour or so on how to reopen or consider reopening your clinic after the COVID-19 lockdown. And to help me with this really fascinating interest subject, I have two very good friends and colleagues, Dr. Jorge Mercado and Dr. Francesco Bernardini. To give you a bit of background, Dr. Jorge Mercado is from Spain. He's a very well-known and respected key opinion leader in Spain in aesthetic medicine. And he has clinics between Alicante and Madrid, and has actually done international fellowships in many countries, including Bulgaria, Argentina. And then we have Dr. Francesco Bernardini, who's an oculofacial plastic surgeon from Italy, again, a key opinion leader, over 50 peer-reviewed publications, has clinics in multiple locations in Italy, including Genoa, Napoli, Roma, Milano, and it has also extensive experience in facial aesthetics and surgery. Now, the reason why I have my two friends, Jorge and Francesco, here is because they are from Spain and Italy, who, compared to at least the UK, are ahead of us in terms of infections and slowing down, and are actually opening or about to open their clinics imminently. So to start off, what I'd really like to say before getting into this is I hope everyone is well. It's been a very challenging time for us, but first and foremost, before we consider going back to work, we should make sure our families and loved ones are well, and then we can focus on if it's the right time to reopen our clinics. But what have been our learnings during quarantine? Specifically from my point of view, what I separate this into two things. I think for myself as a healthcare professional, my colleagues, the learning I've really taken on is the huge amount of education and learning that is available online. And there's actually been a massive demand for this. It's one of the key positives of the quarantine is that we've been able to really develop ourselves more than we could have done otherwise. And then there's huge amount of peer-to-peer exchange, the amount of phone calls I've had with my colleagues and peers throughout the world about what are they doing, not just in terms of reopening, but also sharing ideas. And then there's our patients, the people we really believe in and whom we can't wait to see again. We have definitely seen a rise in the number of requests for online consultations, wanting to discuss things that they couldn't have done otherwise. I think the internet has given them a bit of a safety net. And there's also understanding, which we'll come on to later, is where does the priority for aesthetic treatments sit with them, particularly amongst everything that's going on in the world. So our objective during this webinar is to share our experience in terms of preparing the clinic or our clinics to reopen after lockdown has been lifted in your countries, and then how to open and operate your clinic post-lockdown. And how we're going to navigate this is really by navigating and understanding the patient's journey. It starts off, what are we doing and what are Francesco and Jorge doing before the patient arrives in terms of setting up their practice? What are they doing when the patient arrives in the practice? A lot of questions around PPE, treatments that are being restarted, payments could be one thing. And then finally, what are they doing or what are they preparing for when their patient leaves? How are they managing that patient once they leave the clinic and return home? So some really interesting topics. And where we're going to start is what is being done to prepare your clinic for when the patient or before the patient arrives. We've got some ideas here, and what I'd like to do is go first to Jorge. Jorge, if you could unmute your microphone.
Yes.
Perfect. So Jorge has reopened already, And what I'd like to know, Jorge, is what are the things that you've put in place or have prepared for your patients before they arrive in your clinic?
For the patients, the first of all is we have more work online. We have previous day interviews. It's good because we don't have to spend time in the clinic, which will be reduced because now we have to be splitting apart to reducing the population of the clinic. About 1/3 of the occupancy of the clinic must be used. So all the work, the previous interviews, information dates, we are doing it online. We also send a questionnaire with all these COVID-19 questions about having fever during the last 2 weeks, being in contact with patients of COVID, all these questionnaire, and they're setting everything prepared. I think the idea is to have the patient the less time possible in the clinic to be more safe and to be more productive.
Yeah, yeah. So really the things you're focusing on is online consultations for your patients before they come in. Now, does that involve new patients as well as existing patients?
Yes, I guess we have realized, as you were saying, that there's a lot of demand of aesthetics. All patients are asking for treatments, but also during this quarantine, people is getting interested about it. I guess too much time in front of the mirror. So that's what is happening.
Got you. Okay. And then what else are you doing in terms of, you talked about screening your patients with a questionnaire before they arrive. How are you doing that exactly? Or how, because you're obviously open now. What are the things you have in place to screen them? Is it a phone call? Is it an email? What are you doing?
Well, we have it, we do it by call. The secretary calls and asks all these questions, but we also send it as an email, as a proof that we are doing all the new normative that we're doing it okay. So we send it by email too. And once they are into the clinic, they have to sign all this information. We take the temperature when they come in. We remove their gloves. If they are not bringing a mask, we give them a mask. And that's it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Francesco, what about yourself?
Thanks, Jorge, for anticipating what I think these are universal rules that apply to every country, I must admit, because it resembles a lot what is happening here in Italy as well. I'm about to open actually tomorrow. So for patients, we also do the triage that Jorge was saying. Especially my main location is in Genova, and I have probably a different type of clinic compared to yours. Maybe yours is owned by you, mine is within a big, larger clinic, is a group, so I can adapt, but they have rules on their own. So the larger clinic is in charge of admitting the patient, taking the temperature, setting the color lines to follow to go to where they have to go. They must enter alone. They cannot be accompanied unless they have specific requirements. There are no times in the waiting area. They enter the room of the treatment. They have been prepared already on a phone interview, especially the patient in Genova. When I go outside, and I will have to go after June 3rd, because that's when the regions traveling is going to be allowed. What I'm implementing is the triage on online consultation, because there is I don't know you guys, but we might have some patient that no-show. The no-show is not something good when is in your traveling business office. Like if I have to go to Milan, is close enough, I can accept that. But if I have to take a plane and go to Naples, and we only have, like a very we cannot do any overbooking. We have to have 1 hour or at least 45 minutes between one patient and the other. We cannot really accept to have too many show up. So we really need to connect with the patient on an online interview, paid with a minimal fee that will be discounted off the main. This can be an adaptation to what can be the, like we need to consider everything so we cannot add costs as we've been doing so far yet. But
so again, Francesco, you're screening your patients before they come in, online consultations, which I think is going to be the new norm for all of us. I understand your appointment times, you're making them longer, is that right?
The clinic,
when they come in?
Well, we started thinking of 1 hour on it for each patient. We are now down to 45 minutes to make it more reasonable. Longer days, it's like I was used to work from 9 to 5 and now 8 to 20. So it's a fuller, longer day. There's going to be a lot of time waste between one patient and the other, although it's going to be sanification and all that difficult process of patient turnover that might require extra time. So at least for the first month, we want to make things go as smoothly as possible, even with our employees, because that's already another delicate topic right there, because if they don't feel confident that you're doing the right thing or implementing the right thing, then you have an enemy within your clinic and you already have the patients. So it's going to be more complicated than a usual work situation.
Perfect. So you touched on another really important topic there that I think everyone should be aware of, is in terms of personal protective equipment, getting hold of this, and obviously staff training for using that. Jorge, how's it been in Spain in terms of sourcing and getting the right amount of personal protective equipment for your staff and your patients? Have you had many challenges with that?
At the beginning, it was difficult to find all these equipments, but now I guess it's already set. Normally, we use the FFP2 or the KN95 mask for in the clinic, because we are close to the patients, because, and also, well, gloves. I guess the main idea is to work like if you were in a surgery room, not touching everything, not touching your face, not touching everything. I mean, we all, as doctors, it's not difficult for us if we think like we are in a surgery room.
Yeah.
So it's really not that difficult. I think we must be calm, but we need to train our personnel, because they don't know how to work with gloves, how to remove their clothes. But for the rest, I guess it's not complicated.
Yeah. And you conducted staff training before you opened, is that right? On
yes,
PPE.
yes. Yeah, we have been doing, even we've done tests with ink in the gloves.
Amazing.
So they realize how you touch things whenever, even if you think you're not touching, you know what I mean?
That's really interesting. So you put ink on their gloves to touch, so they can see what they're touching.
Yes. Ink for my children.
Yeah.
So they realize, they say, oh, I didn't know. So now they know how to work with the hands up and not touching everything. It was good.
And Francesco, obviously in terms of purchasing, we're going to come on to the different types of procedures and what's being used. But, have you had many issues in Italy in getting the right amount of equipment?
I think we did. It's all ended up as being very expensive to get all the DPE that are requested. We eventually have many of them. Many were supposed to be shipped. They've been canceled, and then you have to reorder, and then they come up with a higher price. So there's been lots of issues, because everybody, the entire country is actually demanding those DPE from any shop or restaurant, or any working person now is working with those. So of course we don't produce them in the country. We they are coming from abroad. So there's lots of issue also with, it's not the seller, is like transportation is also already overbooked. So they don't arrive on time, they go to Milan instead of Genova. So you never know what you get. So eventually you get lots of high expenses for that. Eventually we are ready, we have everything good to go. There are things that I'm not sure will be so necessary, as there are strict rules, but are those laws or rules or what behavior is like left to, you know, the goodwill of most of us to do it? As I'm just out of curiosity, I follow many of our colleagues in the social, and I see them doing injections, and they have just gloves and maybe a mask shield and the FP2, no gowns. The patient has no gown. So there are rules, and then, you know, like we make them as we go. Like you know, normal life. You have to go. I went to IKEA yesterday, and it was full of people. Not everybody using the mask. So how the rules and the real life will combine one with the other. We'll see. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think, you know, just for everyone who's on the webinar, I think the really important thing is seek out the guidelines in your country, because they are issuing guidelines around what type of mask. In the UK, for example, for the type of injectable procedures we're performing, we've been advised a standard surgical 3-ply mask or a KN95, which is the equivalent of an FFP2, is suitable. And we'll come on to what equipment we should be using for what procedures later. Another key point I would recommend is source all of the equipment early for because of supply issues, just like you said. One of the biggest and scariest things I've seen is the amount of artificial or fake equipment that's circulating. So really be sure you're going to, you know, an accredited supplier. What I'd like to come on to next as part of this is the marketing and treatment prices. So this is something that's even I'm thinking about. Jorge, what have you been doing, or what did you do before you opened in terms of marketing to, when I say internal, that means your database, so your current patients, and then number two, have you been doing any external marketing, social media or anything else?
You know, I've done it.
I know.
Okay, first of all, about our database, we have been doing a triage, like selecting which patients are the VIPs. You know, I'm talking about VIPs, which would you already have their trust, who they are doing bigger treatments, because those are the patients I want to treat them first, because we have been stopped 2 months. So we need to make income at the beginning. Yeah. So that's really important. I mean, not wasting the time with information, not wasting time with this first, because even your patients, they want to do it, they need it. Okay. So first a triage, then the informative consultation online, real patients who have paid, as Francesco said, who have paid and they're really interested about doing the treatment, and then the rest of patients. About external marketing, I've been using the quarantine to communicate. Not only me, I was communicating the treatments, because I believe about informating the population will increase the demand for everyone. So I'm not selling me, I'm talking about aesthetic medicine treatments. So if it works for everyone. So we have been doing direct lives. Actually, it was the first direct lives, inviting other colleagues from all the country. Even you were there talking to us. So, I mean, that was the move. That's it. Don't panic. Just, we need to make a good triage, because our time will be reduced. Our productive time will be reduced. So we need to use it. Then, just for not having too much time, but I want to say about prices. Don't panic. Patients want to do the treatments, and I guess it's a big mistake to reduce the prices. Don't make the discounts for COVID-19, because we're having less time to produce money. We have, as Francesco said, increased our expenses because of protection equipment. We have more expenses and less income, so we don't have to reduce prices. So what we need to do is to make holistic treatments. You know, it's time of the full face. It's time that you use all these techniques that you have been learning in the webinars. It's time for making complete sessions, because we need less time with the patient with more production. And it's time for making credits to make them easy to pay it, but they have to make good treatments, full faces. That's what we are doing, and it's really working. It's working nicely.
Amazing. Thank you, Jorge. And what about you, Francesco? Marketing and pricing, what are you doing?
More or less, I agree with Jorge a lot, because I didn't market too strong, because I don't like it when they come after me trying to sell stuff. So it's not really my style. So I like to eventually let them know what's going on, if a paper came out or if a new treatment has been considered. I, as an oculoplastic surgeon, I focus on the eyes only, and I think this is my last line of marketing was like, you know, now you're all masked up, you recognize it, we recognize each other by the look of our eyes. Invest of your eyes is the best thing you can do for at least this beginning of second phase, phase 2. And so, like, the eyes are more important than normal. I believe in that internal, I give, my old patients, they are the first to be welcomed. I make them feel special. We let them know, we send emails of informing them how we are moving. I also don't want to market too much saying my clinic is the safest, or we have so many, protection. We are the best at, because if that day something is not really at the standard that you say, then they are ready. Each of us is ready to see the fault in somebody else. So we really don't want to be too pushy on that. Just do your basic stuff the best you can. Marketing, don't give up. The marketing, I think, for me is never give up. CEO, and I don't do, but I wouldn't see why not keeping up doing Google Ads. Because not doing too strong marketing doesn't mean that you have to give up the marketplace to your competency, because then you might miss somewhere, like on external. So you don't want to do that either. So
yeah, of course. Yeah, I think a really good point. I mean, my takeaway is that internal marketing, going to your database, triaging, getting those people in, or speaking to them very early is important. I agree exactly with your sentiments about external marketing. I think if you are going to do paid marketing on social media or paid Google ads, that you change the tone of voice. We are in a different world now, and we can't speak to our patients or potential patients the same way we did before. It's going to be a lot softer, a lot more emotional. Fantastic. So I'm going to move on now to the next slide. So what I want to move on to now is when the patient arrives at the clinic. One thing we didn't touch on, sorry, just quickly beforehand, is payments. We're going to be asking patients to pay in advance for all their treatments. There's no transactions in the clinic. But in terms of when a patient arrives at the clinic, what are you doing in terms of providing PPE, or are you providing PPE to your patients, and what type of PPE providing when they arrive? Jorge, take me through what you're doing now, the moment the patient arrives at your door of your clinic.
Well, as soon as they come, as I told you, we remove the PPEs that he's carrying from the street. We give them a surgical mask. They use this hydroalcoholic gel to wash his hands. And we start with the temperature, signing the papers and everything. Then they stand into these pads, these adhesive pads for a surgery room.
Yeah.
And we spray them with this antiseptic liquid, which is like, I don't remember in English, like bleach and water, you know.
Yeah.
And then we get into the room, in the treatment area. We are not using the waiting room. We have one patient every 30 minutes coming, and we place him in one box, in one room, and at the 30 minutes, the other patient is coming and he's moving to a different room. So all the rooms are free for at least 30 minutes after the disinfection. That's what we do.
Okay. What about yourself, Francesco?
More or less the same. I allow enough time. Interestingly, we do not change patients' own mask. They come with their own mask. They don't touch it. They keep it. They hold on to their own mask. That's the first difference that I noticed. And there has been so many discussion about leave their own mask, change their mask because it's dirty. You don't know, but you know what they want to really go into the mask thing. Some people don't have it clear in their minds what the masks are there for. We really want to be protected, so we really want the patient don't exhale to us any virus. So I wouldn't like my patient to wear a mask with a valve, for example, because the mask with a valve protect the patient, but they will push the virus into us. So if I see that, then I would put a surgical mask on top of that one. Otherwise, I wouldn't allow the patient in the clinic. But if the patient has a surgical masks are designed to prevent the spreading of the surgeon of any infected material to the patient. So if a patient has a surgical mask, I'll feel protected. If I have to remove the mask, I will live with a higher protection mask. And for us, the FP2 is safe enough to allow the physician to work in a COVID positive environment. So we are supposedly not at such high risk. If I have to remove the mask, it doesn't matter. Dentists do all, without a mask all the time, and they wear FP2. I see well the face shield as a further protection toward droplets. But in terms of mask, I want the patient to wear their own mask. If it is a surgical mask, I don't want to see any valve. And I will have me and my staff all with FP2 and a face shield. In terms of gowns, I will wear a gown. We bought gowns, impermeable gowns for patients for the treatments. I also have dental drapes. Dentists use that, don't gown up the patient. So I haven't decided yet which way to go. If I finished the gowns, I would go to the drapes, but I want to have a gown myself and my stuff. In terms of caps or shoe covers, the shoe covers that don't concern me because I'm in the clinic, so that's their management of the shoes. I don't see much danger into that, so I wouldn't. We'll have so many increased expenses on that you really don't want to add up, because now maybe if you're changing the mask every time, what type of mask are you giving them? Are you supposed to give, the other doctor gave me a FP2, what is, are we competing on the mask? I mean, I'm not sure I want to go into that mask selling business or like adding.
Yeah. No, I think you both raise really good points. And what's interesting is even between maybe the three of us, there's slight differences in what we're doing. I think the key for everyone to realize is there is not necessarily a right answer here. I think the most important thing is you follow the guidelines within your country in terms of the right personal protective equipment, mainly to do with masks. I think the second most important thing is you have a protocol. Have a protocol. Write it down, print it out, laminate it, and stick to it, because you want to make sure there's that consistency. I mean, what we're doing in our clinic, we have cosmetic dentistry in our clinic, and my business partner is a cosmetic dentist. So in terms of their PPE standards, I mean, this is an industry that went through lots of infectious diseases in the past. So they've learned a great deal of what to put in place, and they obviously have aerosol generating procedures as well. So we're actually implementing dental standards, which probably is higher than a lot of aesthetic medical clinics, but again, it doesn't matter. We stick to one thing and have it written down and maintain that protocol. I love the idea of the waiting room, not having patients in the waiting room. One of the things we're doing, and I know a lot of clinics are doing it, is patients are going to wait in their car until they're called in. They only come to the clinic when they're called in. So it's, you know, the door is locked otherwise. And then they leave, we clean down the room, next patient in. And you need your team to manage that. So again, I would urge a lot of you just to write down this journey. Jorge, in terms of treatments, now this is the bit that's really interesting because a lot of, and Francesco, I know you do surgery, so maybe it's slightly different from your perspective, but Jorge, in an aesthetic medical clinic, we're obviously doing injectables, which is the bread and butter. It's the majority of what we do. But then a lot of clinics do other procedures. I'm thinking of microneedling being one, right? Microneedling of the face, body treatments, you know, fat freezing, etc., body sculpting, facials. I know you do a lot of hair transplants. Tell me a bit about what you're doing in your practice in terms of starting which treatments, what are you not starting, and what are the PPE, the differences in the protocols for each?
Really, as I told you, we're mainly working as in a surgery room about not touching, disinfecting after every patient, waiting, letting the air flows. We are also ventilating the rooms for 10 minutes more. I mean, we are doing every treatment. We're doing everything, and we don't need anything special for any other treatment. We have to treat this with respect, with distance, with common sense, and mainly, honestly, we don't make any difference between treatments. I mean, if you use a piece, you need to disinfect the piece, the wire and everything. If new patient is coming, you have to clean all the area. And when they come with clothes, that they will remove their coat and everything gets into a bag before passing into the clinic. So, I mean, it's mainly common sense. And I want to thank really much because the Aesthetic Medicine Spanish Society have done a really good, nice guidelines for this.
Got you, okay. Francesco, what about yourself?
We do have strict, as you were saying, keep to the rules, stick to the rules, and we do have employed our time in Italy. I follow all the rules about, you know, I'm an oculoplastic surgeon doing cosmetic medicine, and so I'm stuck between ophthalmological society, plastic surgery society, and aesthetic medicine society, and we do have 3 different aesthetic medicine society in Italy. So the Aesthetic Medicine Society, which is more interesting to us in this setting, they reunited for the first time to set shared lines and rules. So we really have 45-page guidelines for that. So it's kind of really a lot of studying to do, but it's I think it's very useful and enlightening. It's also, let's say, I don't really think that we are, in terms of doing this injection, for it especially, we are not really into higher risks procedure here, not for us, nor for the patients. As I was reading all the various papers that have been published in the literature recently at the time of COVID, and I did publish it myself some. In terms of surgery, as you mentioned before, there are 4 lines of procedure that are of increased risk. At the bottom risk is a major invasive transplant and such, but I think as a plastic surgeon, aesthetic surgeon, we stick to the 2nd category at most, like saying a blepharoplasty, and that is considered as a low risk procedure also for the patient. I'm talking about immunologic risk to put the patient at increased risk of not recovery and such. But the thing is interesting as I say things that let's say eye injector or medical doctor, non-invasive treatment and surgeon. And I'm at the phase where what am I choosing for my patient? So it's interesting because I'm now really hitting much more on aesthetic medicine. Let's say you have bags, you're considering a bluff, but have you tried injectables? Because that's easier. Patients now don't have that big money allowance, or if they do, they are concerned, will I have it some in the future? They are concerned about a procedure that can be put in danger. So I would feel myself like that. I say, why don't you try an injectable to overcome whatever surgical procedure? And the same thing, a patient considering it or mentioning facelifting, you might want to consider a multi-layer teoxane approach, injectable of the mid-face or like jawline refinements. Invest more in aesthetic medicine treatment because they are easier, safer, more reproducible, less risky for the patient. So I think that's a marketing safety strategy that I really
that's really interesting. So actually injectables for you now is probably going to become more of an option for some of your patients. So a specific question I have for both of you is around lip treatments, so lip augmentation. Any concerns, anything additional you're doing? There's a lot of discussion on forums around the world. Jorge, any concerns over performing lip treatments?
Well, there are in these guidelines that I told you, there's a recommendation of making this iodine washing before starting doing the lip augmentation. For the rest, your mask,
same,
and your shield or your goggles or whatever. That's it. Because of the flush, you need also to protect the eyes. That's
of course, yeah, absolutely. Francesco, what about yourself?
I would strongly recommend not to be talking conversational during the treatment. That's the only thing with any face treatment. That's to say, we discussed before and after, we sit at 2 meter distance one from the other. We're done talking. Okay, now zip it and we'll talk after. You have something to say, raise your hand. I make sure I go back and then we restart. But other than that, that is it's not like a guideline that you need. You really need to be practical. I don't see why we should be concerned with lips when dentists will be doing, like, come on, let's be practical. And, I'm not saying cynical, safe, but lips can be done even if they are closed or barely. I mean, just you really don't need to be so scared. We really need to have the courage to get back as close to normality with protection as much as possible. And,
Yeah, absolutely. And the last question I have on this topic, which is a really interesting one, again, a lot of people have asked me this, is volume of syringes, right? I know, Jorge, your practice very well. You're very similar to myself, multi-syringe, whole face approach. Do either of you have any concerns around, if a patient is possibly infected with COVID-19 using more than, say, 2, 3, 4 syringes? Francesco, any concerns on your behalf?
Well, I'm like, I have opinions, but opinions are really of low interest to our listener now. I mean, there is no scientific evidence of anything. So you can say 3 syringes limit, 6 syringes limit. So give a number, pick a number. I mean, there's no evidence on that. So until that, use a reasoning, I wouldn't change anything that I've been doing so far. I would determine the number of syringes on the real necessity to treat the patient. I wouldn't try to sell more. I wouldn't try to do the best, like 12 syringes in a session or anything like that. But, I wouldn't change my injectable pattern at all. While I would maybe reduce the size of surgical approach. Instead of lifting, I would do less. But with the injectable, I wouldn't have any concern on that.
Perfect. Jorge, I assume it's the same for you.
Yeah, I haven't changed anything. There's no scientific explanation for the moment for this. But yes, we have to be open eyes after treatment if anything happens about our treatments. But for the moment, in my experience, these 2 weeks, it's everything like normal.
Perfect. So, and that's, I think, really important there is evidence-based, guys. We've got to be careful with our opinions and our perceptions, but the evidence doesn't indicate any higher risk at the moment for using more syringes.
Yes, no.
Thank you. So on to the next one now. So in terms of when a patient leaves or after they've left the clinic, tell me a bit about what you're doing in terms of follow-up, any complications, anyone who's got to pay anything else after they've left. And a big thing is skincare. Skincare is a large part of a lot of aesthetic clinics. Francesco, talk to me about what you've got in place for, when you start reopening from tomorrow.
Really, I will go back to follow-up online consultation. I think the online consultation will remain even after the COVID emergency because it's so convenient. And I actually had it already for a treatment. So I wouldn't ask a patient the next day to come back and see me after injectable, but I would ask them to send us pictures. My assistant would review them, and any selected patient with any issue would send me the picture, and I would suggest any medication. So I think as injector, we should be able to overcome every complication that is not so vascular, but that happens in front of you. But let's not talk about that. Like complications are related to swelling or unevenness or lumpiness or any concern the patient might have. I say pictures, videos, online consultation, give it for free. It's that is where you can make the difference. Extra care, be you to respond to call, not your assistant this time. Be there for them, make sure you with me, and I'll be with you until the end, until you be happy. Come back and see me only just for your safety. Come back and see me only if there is a real concern. Otherwise, send me a picture. Let's get online consultation. It's everybody else pays, but for you is free. So it's like this kind of completion. And then I think complication management, it depends. I will make them urgent on a consultation basis. If I see that the specific complication really requires immediate attention, then I will make sure they have a priority access, even though it's a tight schedule because you have to space them well apart, but I could make her come over time. So, I will find a time for any complication. Payment option, or, I wouldn't be too subtle to not accept various form of payment, I'll very open-minded. You want to pay me cash, suit yourself. So, but so I wouldn't, automation of the office, I think is a great opportunity to invest now, even for the future, because we don't only want to make more money. We have concerns of our own finances. So we also want to reduce as much as cost as possible. So automation, scheduling, there are so many ways of call from outside sourcing, call transfer to emails, services, Facebook page, appointments, scheduling, all that stuff. I try to automate as much as advance payment if the patient does want to come for their standard Botox treatment. But I like to invest in skincare. I would push push it a little more because that is adding a value for a patient. You can give them a gift after the treatment, a small skincare sample or something, but then tell them, push it, or have your assistant or any manager of your clinic spend a little more time with the patient and sell them the good, especially for us that work at Dioxane, we have such a wonderful line of cosmeceuticals that it's really a good opportunity to make them feel that have specific place in this time. So skincare, as much as a little more, that I would push it a little.
Perfect, thank you. And Jorge, what about yourself?
Well, we're just following by video conferencing call. It's really common. You know that I'm not used to do retouch and touch-ups after the treatments, and I think doctors or colleagues who used to do this in 2 sessions, treatments and this, try to do it in 1. It's a good moment to change this point of view, even for you with the patients there. If you let them retouch, they are never happy and they want more and more, and you will be losing time, money, product, and everything. So they have to know, patients know, and they accept this is your treatment, and if you need more, you need to do a second treatment, other time. So that's why we don't have a lot of change, because we have done this before. So we just do the checkup by video conferencing. I like what Francesco said, trying to be personal, be with your patients. That's really, really good. About payment, they can pay as they want. We suggest always to pay by card or by transaction. And about skincare, that's my Achilles. That's my easy part. I don't do it very well. I'm trying to improve. We do the sales and we sell it by mail, but I'm not really an expert on that. I would like you to explain me how you do it, because I'm not really good on that.
How you do it, Benji? Tell us.
Skincare. I mean, I think skincare is the one opportunity for all aesthetic medical clinics to, I think you can do 2 different things. As Francesco said, it could be a gift, which is an add-on. It's a nice value. But I actually think the sale of skincare is, look, it's very low risk. It can get great results if prescribed and issued correctly to the right type of patients. So it's one of the things that we've been doing, quite a bit of during lockdown, particularly. Fortunately, a lot of the distributors here in the UK are doing home delivery. So we do the online consult, choose their skincare, prescribe it if it's prescription, and it's delivered straight to their door by the company. I think once we open up, because we're not there yet in the UK, this will be a big thing we do after the patient leaves. So how I envisage this to happen is, traditionally when a patient's in the clinic and they've had their treatment, they've gone downstairs to reception, and then usually one of your team will may discuss skincare again. What I'm going to try and implement is, after the patient has left, we schedule a follow-up online consultation that is in the diary, and we discuss skincare, right? So beforehand, it was almost like a quick add-on, but the patient wants to leave quickly. Now you add it on with a review of their treatment and the skincare and an online consultation. I would imagine that I think the conversion to sales for skincare will go up.
I will write this up.
Yeah, so I think it's a nice thing to add on. And for those of us that have the Dioxane range of skincare, again, great products, and you have different options, of how you want to then ship this to the patient. But I would encourage everyone to think of that.
The way it might be interesting for Jorge to increase your sale in skincare is like making one of your nurses or your staff be a partner of this. So let them have an interest in selling it, and your sale will increase up to the roof, because I'm not selling. I'm a very bad seller myself. I cannot, I even get ashamed of telling the price of anything, but, and I'm not really good at money. I don't even deal with money my wife at home, or, you know, like, I'm not a money person. I can spend it. I'm not good at making it. So for that, I really need to learn. But if you make one of your associate, one of your co-workers, a partner on just that part of sale, you tell them, if you sell that, I give you like 30%, 20%, 50%, and they see how much money they can make, they will be like a money maker, and you are not even discussing that.
I'm writing that too.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Exactly. And then it's a win-win situation. It's actually a triple win situation. Patients are happy because you are offering them kind of not commercially available products that they buy. They feel like they actually, let's say, it's a hyaluronic acid that I use for the eyes inside. Can you imagine how good it is for the skin? So like all these kind of lines really make, they really buy everything. Then they start with one, and you don't know, maybe they spend $10 on the treatment. They spend three times as much for the skincare, and say, hey, what is that? And you make more money. I mean, really, it's interesting. So don't give it up.
Yeah. I'll do it.
Great suggestion. So I'm just thinking of time, guys. We haven't got much longer, but what a really interesting topic that I want to finish off with is managing the injectable consultations. So we are all aware that, you know, how bad, you know, people are suffering. Maybe people have been in hospital themselves, or they've had loved ones who have suffered, or they've, you know, unfortunately, some people have obviously, you know, had relatives that have passed away as a result of this. And these could be our patients walking in the door. And not even that, even if they've had no one affected, everyone is emotionally affected by this pandemic and lockdown. So the question I have for both of you, and Francesco, maybe if we can start with you, is how or if will patients' emotions, or the change in their emotions, have an impact on your consultations for injectables?
I think my idea after this this very long lockdown situation, even though I will be all masked up and social distance, I want to try to. I feel like from inside, really spontaneously, the need to interact with in my own environment, with my people, with my patients, the people that come, they make an effort to come and see me because they feel they need me. And I want to give them not only the treatment, I want to give them the best that I can give them at this specific situation. So my philosophy is like, give them more of you, more warmth. Don't just, you are inside, do this, sit there, don't touch, put your gloves, what you want, I inject, please leave and pay. I want to make them tell me, how was your quarantine? Make them feel connected. My quarantine was such and such, but I heard this. If they go on the sad side, match them to stories that you have. If they say, oh, it was the best time of my life, say, you know how tan I am, you know, like, you know, just try to make them connected, find the good part or the something in common. We all have that. I start cooking, I learn, you know, like so many things that can be discussed and break the ice, make them feel like you really are concerned and you really are. Then instead of Jorge mentioned not to lower the prices, there's going to be all of us out there saying we're back, we are giving discounts, we are giving such, there is a strong competence right now, but I will overcome that by giving more, giving better, try to give my best treatment, find them the best thing that they see, they, you know, like that would make themselves look in the mirror and say, wow, I'm so glad I'm back. I don't know how I made it without you, because there is a need for the basic now. And the basic is get your hair done, get your beard done, get yourself back at looking without wrinkles, a better look, feel life again. But we can give them more, do it. Don't be like, if you have to open up, they ask you 4 syringes and then squeeze it in the 5th one without even, or make them notice that you really wanted to top it off. without adding any. Maybe like that is a discount, but not really downselling, or something that is iffy, and I really is not my marketing line. I just try to keep it the high quality, and then the prices come with that. So if I have to say in the end, add more value to the patient experience. It's not going to be pleasant for the patient to stick to the rules that we impose them, because have been imposed to us. It's not going to be a friendly, nice experience. We'll all be like, but overcome that with any other possible way, and each of us will vary out depending on our inner aspect, or whatever we like better, how we like to interact better with our patients, if professionally only but human. Put your best part out of it, and I feel I need it. I want to have a lot of human exchange, and so make it. We can learn things from our own patient stories. So each of us really should be able to do that.
Thank you, Francesco. Jorge, what about you? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, my thoughts of this is that we face a pandemic, and people is sad, is bored, is a bit depressed, everything looks blue. But there's also a big part, a nice part. People is not buying cars, they're not having expenses, not going to restaurants, not traveling, not holidays. So I know people is having through a tough moment economically, but there's a big part of the population which is not spending much, and they're feeling sad. They want to feel better. So that's why we have people calling to the clinics. That's why people is asking us by Instagram or by Facebook. So it looks good. Demand is increasing, because you're not treating only your patients, your regular patients. We're increasing patients. So it's good. At the beginning, at the phase 1, we will have an euphoria, I guess, for us 2 months after the lockdown. It will be a bit of euphoria. People want to get their wrinkles done, their lips done, their cheekbones. They don't want to feel tired because they have been facing the mirror all the time. So it's good for us to treat these 2 months of euphoric, to use it. And then we will have a normality after the 3rd, 4th month. We will reduce this euphoria, we will be working normal. And then maybe to the last months of the year, the work will be more reduced because we will be feeling the economical situation of recession. Then we have to be smart during these 4 months after the lockdown, and to be smart the months after. We use fillers and ice cosmetics, and I insist, it's the moment of the full faces. It's the moment to explain what you haven't explained before to your patients about elderness, about how their face is changing, why you need to do all this amount of syringes. It's a moment for that. If you haven't done it before, it's your moment, because patients want to look, they don't want to go for 1 syringe to make this line better if they're all sad and tired. You understand what I mean? Absolutely. So it's a moment of use fillers, use cosmetics, that's your Botox, whatever. But I mean, it's a moment for us to do it. And patients need it. They want us. And the aesthetic doctors, we have a close connection with your patients, as Francesco said. We are more than doctors. We are their friends, their confidants, their psychologists. So we have to be there for them, but we have to offer them real solutions for their problems. And they're not spending money on other things, and they want to spend money on you. That's good. So don't panic. We will do it, okay?
Fantastic. Beautiful answers, both of you. I think the key is, if there's been any other time that we need to show our humanity, it's now, right? In every case, not even just in our businesses, but outside. And I think you both summarized it perfectly. So listen, thank you both very, very much. I found that informative. I've learned a lot of things. Although we've written our protocols, there's things we can change based on your advice. I think the key is that follow your local guidelines, but have a protocol in place. And for all of you tuned in, I hope you've learned a great deal from Francesco and Jorge. What I really wanted to finish off with before we go to questions is this quote here, which I think is really important at this time, is that the greatness of a community, our aesthetic medical community, is most accurately measured by the compassionate action of its members. What I wanted to communicate with this is, if any of your colleagues, even if they are a competitor to you in your local town, be there to help them out. We should all be there for each other. This is the time to support each other, and realize that competition is just a word. We've got to be there for each other's businesses and each other as humans. So on that note, what we will move to is questions. I can see a lot of questions have been coming in. So I will go over to Fabienne.
Hi.
Hi, Fabienne. So,
hi, Benji, Francesco, and Jorge. Thank you so much for this amazing discussion, very informative. You do have a lot of questions coming through, and there's actually quite a few questions on the management of COVID-19 positive patients, and there's actually two types of patients that are mentioned in the questions. The first one is, if you have a patient that was COVID positive during the injection, but you were not aware of it, and then you are being told afterwards. So do you, like in terms of guidelines, do you do differently from what you were going to do in terms of how you manage your clinic, etc.? And also, how do you manage the other patients that were in your clinic at this time? So that's the first type of patient. And the other type of patient is a patient who was COVID positive and recovered now. Are you going to treat them? Do you ask for consent form? How do you manage those two types of patients?
So I'm probably sure we've all got our own answers to those. So let's go to Jorge. So on the first question of a patient finding out that they're COVID-19 positive after you've treated them, what would you do?
Pray. No, just joking. No, I actually, we don't know what would happen. What I would do is only follow up. Obviously, because he was at the clinic, we will do all the tests, all me and my equipment, my nurses and secretary, people who has been in contact with, and nothing else for what I would do. What about you, Francesco?
Oh, there's nothing you can do other than take care of, you know, like the people that this specific patient has been in contact with among us. And so I'd be more concerned for ourselves than for the patient himself, because there's nothing I can do about that any longer. But I will make sure I will follow up with him a lot more closely, because we don't know what's going. I mean, there is no science. But we might be creating a science in 6 months, 12 months time by looking at this patient. So I want to be sure I don't miss any signs of reaction, unusual, unexpected in a patient that might turn out COVID positive at a later date, because we have no information about that. We don't know how long it's going to be this emergency for. And so we might need to bulk up some literature among the complication, even though, and I'm also replying to the second question, I guess, HA treatments are very low immunogenic treatments as compared to like more aggressive, full facelifting or anything like that. So I would not, because the problem with the COVID infection is the immunogenicity and the vascular response to that. And in any case, my understanding would be to soften down the immune response. So I wouldn't see, I usually do not routinely prescribe steroids, but in this case, you know, like next day, patient is more swollen and he is COVID positive, then I say, you know, talk to your doctor. He'll be the one giving you steroids, but you know, like, eventually start with some steroids, or I don't know. How would you manage it, Benji?
So in the UK, we have quite specific guidelines in terms of exposure. So what we would do in our practice, because we'd want to adhere to the government guidelines, is if a patient were to have found out that they were COVID-19 after I've treated them, technically I should be self-isolating for 2 weeks after that treatment. That's the guidelines, because what we don't know and what the science is hasn't answered yet is the silent carriers. So have I got the disease or the virus, and am I carrying it and infecting others? So I would certainly self-isolate for 2 weeks after knowing that. I would have a duty of care to inform all my patients that I've seen after that, and obviously tell my patients. There would be an argument over whether you have to shut your clinic down. That's, I think, a whole other question, but I would take myself out of the equation.
That will happen.
Sorry?
But that will happen also. Imagine that you awake with 37.5 degrees, or with your throat having, you will have to cancel we will have to cancel all our schedule.
Yeah,
because we have to live with that for the moment. We can't do anything else.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're asymptomatic, the evidence says that you could still be a carrier.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I agree.
And I think, although I'm very much with you guys in terms of, the risk potential of transmitting it, we don't know, but could be low. But I think it's the duty of care. I would probably ask to get all my team tested. We'd probably do a deep clean of the clinic. I would, probably recommend my patients that were exposed to me afterwards get tested. I mean, the question now of the antigen or antibody test is a whole other argument or discussion.
Yeah.
What I would do for patients who have had it and then want to have treatment, I would want them to be symptom-free for 2 weeks, completely symptom-free for 2 weeks before they come in to have treatment with me. Just because I want to ensure that any viral load or the exposure risk has gone down as much as possible. And again, that's following government guidelines. They've looked at 2 weeks, they're issuing this 2-week magic number. I don't necessarily know if that's right or wrong, but what I wouldn't want to do is go against that and expose myself to risk unnecessarily. So, I mean, we've obviously got some different answers there. I hope that answers the question, Fabienne.
Yeah, I think it's a great answer. Sorry, the audience is asking tricky question, but you're replying really well. So the other question that is a little bit linked to what you just said, Benji, is in terms of like the patient saying that he's been symptom-free for 2 weeks. Do you ask them to sign a specific consent? Do you have also some specific insurance that have been set up for this kind of events? What does exist in your different countries?
So, I mean, I'll give my answer and I go to Francesco and Jorge, but I know the American Society of Plastic Surgery have come out with a COVID-19 consent form, obviously mainly directed for surgery, and that's been circulating quite a degree. I have considered adding in COVID-19 into my consent. Because we're not open yet, I haven't, I don't know the answer is the best way to describe it. I more than likely will include it because I want to ensure that patients know that they're coming to me for a non-essential service and that they are increasing their risk, albeit even with our PPE equipment, to this. So I probably would add it into all my consent forms for the foreseeable future. And the second part of the question, Fabienne, was consent was one, and
the insurances. Are you aware of any insurances that cover this kind of risk?
I mean, listen, I'd love to hear what my friends are going to say in a second on the insurance. I've asked my insurance company over here. I've emailed them. I've called them. I haven't got one response yet, and I suspect that's because they don't know either. What about you guys, Jorge? So consent and then insurance.
Well, consent, we give them. The Spanish Aesthetic Society send us a consent for about COVID-19, and they sign it when they come. We also send it through the first email I told you about. And then about the insurance, I'm not sure. Actually, we have been speaking with the insurance company. they said they will cover it, but we haven't received the papers yet. So I don't know. Until I don't have it in a written on a paper, it's not official. So they said it will be covered, but I don't know.
Francesco, what about in Italy?
I wish there was an insurance, so that would be much easier. But unfortunately, I'm afraid insurance don't want to hear about that. But I've been kind of reassured by lawyers, friends of mine, that saying it's almost impossible to get to pinpoint the exact moment of the infection and be able to attribute it to you. But that doesn't make things any better, because you still have to be, if a patient would blame you, you must be able to show all the steps that you have taken. So you have to, they cannot pinpoint you as a blame for the infection, but still you have to be able to show that you have taken all the necessary precaution, and I'm afraid you're left alone with no insurance or to anything that happens. And this has been an unexplored field for lawyers or insurances. So everything, I mean, nobody knows anything about this. So actually, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, it's still an unanswered question. You know, there's no straight answer to that either.
Yeah, there's no straight answer to any of that, but that's why we have to discuss it.
Sorry, Fabian, I'll just quickly add on. There was a question from where can we get the COVID-19 consent form? So obviously in Spain, the society has issued it there. The one I'm talking about, the ASPS, if you just go onto the ASPS website, American Society of Plastic Surgeons, they have a consent form on there. You can access their documents, and you can pull out the information that, you know, pertains to that and add that into yours if you want to do that.
And for the Italian, there is the Collegio of Aesthetic Society, Italian Society, as well in the website. So the three main societies do have their consent there also.
Any other challenging questions, Fabienne?
Yeah, it's only challenging questions. So thank you so much for taking the time to answer them. So in terms of what Jorge was saying earlier, meaning like you have to treat the full face to for the patients, etc. There are different types of supposed risks depending on the region. So of course there's the droplets from the mouth, but also the eyes have been identified as a potential point of entry for the virus. So how do you manage, like when your patients when you're working with your patients on either the perioral area or the eyes, or how do you manage the treatment? And is it different from if you would do like just the mid-face, like, or do you consider differently really the mouth from the rest?
No, what we do, first of all, the FFP2 mask or the KN95 mask, then also the face shield, because that way we don't have this air contamination or by mucosa into the eyes. Also, what Francesco said, not talking to the patient while you are really close to him or her. For the rest, what I told you, they recommend us this iodine washing for the mouth, you know, to make a mouth washing before the treatment, and that's it, nothing else. Because if you're protected by your eyes, you are protected by your mouth and nose, and you're not talking, really the risk, well, your gloves, obviously, changing, not touching everything. I mean, it's really difficult to get infected.
Perfect.
I would have a suggestion to make that I could that really came up to me as a potential area of complication in the future, as for mid-face or infraorbital treatments and the masks, because the prolonged use of tight masks as such as FP2 for a day, let's say, they might make and leave marks and block lymphatic circulation over there. So we should expect more of that. So I might come to the point to recommend before injecting there, just make sure to be able to use surgical masks and they are not really exposed to high risk. So for any like doctors or any potential COVID exposed to COVID positive environment, make that specific recommendation, because the marking down is below here can be pretty tight, and we have seen enough with swimming goggles and ski mask with increased signs and of blockage, and so just I don't know if you guys agree with this potential.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Something I hadn't actually thought about, but I think that's absolutely key. I think some of the things we're doing around perioral treatments, or in fact any treatment. So as I mentioned, we have a dental practice as well. They're asking every patient, as are we, before they come into the clinic, to brush their teeth. So they, that's going to be a request. Before every treatment, we're going to be asking them to rinse their mouth with the appropriate mouthwash, irrespective of I'm doing the mid-face, upper face, lower face, lips at all. So again, that's going to reduce if they did have any viral load in their mouth. And then everything else is, as Jorge said, treat it as if you're in surgery. All of us that, even who have gone through medical dental school, we all know the surgical standards of no touch. I think the things I am going to be doing is double gloving. So if I am touching the lips and injecting it, and then I'm going to immediately move those gloves, because inadvertently I have to touch something else to maybe come back to the patient, maybe pick up another syringe or another needle. I think as long as you take those precautions, there wouldn't be, I think, any higher risk than than treating any other areas of the face.
Double gloving is a very good way of overcoming many situations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this answer. I think we can take a last question, that is a bit of a business question. So we have one of the doctors who was planning on with a beginner injector and moving to a new city, and is just wondering, is it wise to start a new business now in those conditions? What are your insights on that?
I'll give you my thoughts. I actually think you're probably in a better position than you realize, because as a beginner, you can start to look. There's so much education out there now online that none of us probably were able to access when we were beginners. So I think that's a great thing to do. I think the second thing is, in terms of starting your practice, it's, you can put the right things into place now that are the right things to do. So I know the three of us have been injecting for quite a while. We'll have some behaviors and some patterns that probably, we need to change, and it's going to take us time to change those elements. So I think you're in a better position to start doing things the right way, particularly within this pandemic. I think the thing to bear in mind is probably going to take a little bit longer to build your database, build your client list than it would be otherwise. But I think if you have the patience, you have the passion for it, I wouldn't say why not to do, why you shouldn't do this. What do you guys think?
I guess it's a good moment for education, for trying it. Honestly, about starting without having a database background, I guess, in my opinion, it's too risky at this moment because of rent, support, machinery, employees. I honestly, I guess I wouldn't open, me, Jorge, I wouldn't open in this time. I would be preparing, getting ready for the desk, or adding me to someone to get my practice done, and then jumping out by myself.
Me, I would do it right now, because probably you should consider that this is the best time to get a loan. The lowest interest that you can ever get is now. You will be preparing. You will have a low number of patients coming in, but we all will have lower than usual. So probably is it the right time to set a starting point? Rentals space was going to be lower, mortgages and everything is very, if you have enough money to start with or asking a loan for, it's a good time to get started and prepare. And then start with time. It will take time, but if things will speed up too much, then you'll be left behind and you miss the window. So that's never too early to start with when you really need to start.
Great, thank you so much for answering all those questions. I think we will take all the other questions offline. Thank you so much again for your visions from the UK, Italy, and Spain. And Benji, I just let you close the call.
Yeah, thank you, Fabienne. So again, I really want to thank Francesco and Jorge. I think it's so important we learn from each other as a community. And you know, Jorge's already open. We've learned so much from what he's doing now, and Francesco obviously tomorrow. To everyone who's listening, best of luck. I really wish, and I know that my colleagues will do, that you all open safely and we do the right thing, most importantly, other than anything else. If you guys have any questions, please shoot them through to us. You can access any three of us through to Oxane or through social media. We're more than happy to help. Good luck and stay safe.
Thank you, Benji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benji. Thank you, everyone. Thank
Ciao.
you for joining. Ciao. Bye-bye.